everyone, my name is Emily and I'm a Youth Services Librarian at the Rock Island Public Library. And today, because it is Banned Books Week, wanted to read to you a bit from the banned book I am currently reading, and this is Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. And so we had our banned books reading this week, and people from all over the community come and read passages from different banned books, because Banned Books Week is about celebrating the freedom to read. And so this book has been challenged in places, and you'll get a sense why as I read, probably, because this is a book that asks tough questions of communities. The protagonists in this book, the community in which they live supposedly does not have monsters anymore, and gets into what that means. But the idea here is just because people say something is true, that doesn't mean that's the reality. And so this is actually Jam. Jam is on the cover here. She and her best friend Redemption, they're teenagers, and they've grown up in a city called Lucille. And they've always been told, like, well, ever since the revolution, things are much better, and people in positions of power that used to use their positions to hurt people, all right, they've been sentenced to like restitution. Like, there's no more jails. We're trying to actually rehabilitate people and find out why they do the things they do and help them to not hurt people anymore. But Jam's mother is a painter, and she does this painting of this kind of like terrifying figure. And at the start of the book, Jam's fascinated by this painting. She goes to look at it one night in her mother's studio after her parents have gone to sleep, and Jam thinks, you know, I want to get a good look at this because it's beautiful, but it's unsettling. It's this creature with feathers and horns, and when she leans over to look at it, she almost has this kind of vertigo. Like, the canvas is on the floor, and Jam finds herself leaning forward, and she can't stop. And she falls forward onto the painting, and she cuts her hand. And because of this, because she gets blood on this painting, the thing inside the painting, which is a creature called Pet, comes out of the painting. And it explains to Jam that it is there to hunt a monster. There's a monster in her best friend Redemption's house. And at first, Jam can't believe this. She's known Redemption's family her whole life, and she loves these people, and she feels like, I know these people. None of them are monsters. This is impossible. But as the book goes on, she and Redemption start asking some tough questions, and Pet, this creature, is sort of encouraging them to seek the truth. The idea being that the truth is the truth even if you don't speak it. Even if Jam were to send Pet back to wherever it comes from, well, there would still be something happening. And she feels, okay, I can't take the risk. Like, if this is happening, if somebody is hurting somebody in my friend's house, I can't just do nothing. I can't just look back on this and think, well, I could have done something, but it would have been hard, or it could have caused pain, because there's already pain happening here. So I'm going to read you just a little bit of this book. And this book was published by an imprint called Make Me a World. So the note to readers goes like this. Dear reader, they don't make evil like they used to. Politicians make policies putting children in cages and allow big companies to pour poison into our air and water. But they will say they are just doing it to support business, and that we'll all reap the benefit of the poison eventually. There are people who scream their hatred to the skies, burn torches, and mock those who are different from themselves. Even they have their excuses, usually something about protecting a way of life. There are no villains anymore. On television and movies, villains are easily recognizable. The bad guys wear long dark robes and have no noses, or wear tight-fitting suits and have red eyes. There's something comforting in this idea, that when you see evil, you will know it, that it cannot be hiding in the everyday faces of people you ride the bus with, or go to school with, or share a sandwich with at lunch. Hannah Arendt, the political philosopher, coined the phrase, the banality of evil, that evil is very often terrifyingly normal. She knew, as many who have suffered do, that the worst things can happen in the blandest of places, between the lines in a textbook, omitting large swaths of history, or in the hushing of a child who has something important to say. All these things are done in the name of keeping our world safe, consistent, banal. And when our villains have new costumes and haircuts and the latest styles, where will we say that evil lives? Will it be in the voices that dare to disturb that peaceful illusion? Pet asks precisely these questions. In a voice that is as clear and poetic as in any of their work for adults, Akwaeke examines the journey that evil has made, from monstrosity to mainstream. This adventure, set in any place America, thinks about language and communication, for versatility in listening and speaking is essential to understanding where we are in the world, to see past the lie that there are no longer any villains. Akwaeke asks us readers to reconsider our monsters, to look past the comforting illusions, and, along with Jam and Redemption, hunt for the true villains in our midst. And that's by Christopher Myers, but just in the first few pages, you get more of a sense of Jam's world, like the picture is painted very clearly for you, and it's a fascinating place, so here's the first couple pages. Chapter 1. There shouldn't be any monsters left in Lucille. The city used to have them, of course. What city didn't? They used to be everywhere, thick in the air, in offices, in the streets, and in people's own homes. They used to be the police and teachers and judges, and even the mayor. Yeah, the mayor used to be a monster. Lucille has a different mayor now. This mayor is an angel. The last couple of mayors have all been angels. Not like a from heaven, not quite real type of angel, but a from behind and inside and in front of the revolution, therefore very real type of angel. It was the angels who took apart the prisons and the police, who held councils prosecuting the former officers who'd shot children and murdered people, sentencing them to restitution and rehabilitation. Many people thought it wasn't enough, but the angels were only human, and it's hard to build a new world without making people angry. You try your best, you move with compassion, you think about the big structures. No revolution is perfect. In the meantime, the angels banned firearms, not just because of the school shootings, but also because of the kids who shot themselves and their families at home, the civilians who thought they could shoot people who didn't look like them, just because they got mad or scared or whatever, and nothing would happen to them, because the old law liked them better than the dead. The angels took the laws and changed them, tore down those horrible statues of rich men who'd owned people and fought to keep owning people. The angels believed, and the people agreed, that there was a good amount of proper and deserved shame in history, and some things were just never going to be things to be proud of. Instead, they put up other monuments. Some were statues of the dead, mostly the children whose hashtags had been turned into battle cries during the revolution. Others were giant sculptures with thousands of names carved into them, because too many people had died, and if you made statues of everyone, Lucille would be filled with stone figures, and there'd be no room for the alive ones. The names were of people who died when the hurricanes hit, and the monsters wouldn't evacuate the prisons or send aid. People who died when the monsters sent drones and bombs to their countries, because, as the angels pointed out, you shouldn't use a nation as a basis to choose which deaths you mourn. Nations aren't even real. People who died because the monsters took away their health care, names and names of people and people, countless letters recording that they had been. The citizens of Lucille put dozens of white candles at the base of each monument, hung layers of marigold necklaces around the necks of the statues, and, when they walked past, would often fall silent for a moment and press a palm against the stone, soaking up the heat the sun had left in it, remembering the souls the stone was holding. They'd remember the marches and vigils, the shaky footage that was splashed everywhere of their deaths, the thing that wasn't allowed anymore, that gruesome dissemination of someone's child gasping in their final moments, bubbling air or blood or grief. The angels respected the dead and their loved ones. The people of Lucille would remember the temples that were bombed, the mosques, the acid attacks, the synagogues. Remembering was important. Jam was born after the monsters, born and raised in Lucille, but like everyone else, she remembered. It was taught in school, how the monsters had maintained power for such a long time, how the angels had removed them, making Lucille what it is today. It wasn't like the angels wanted to be painted as heroes, but the teachers wanted the kids to want to be angels, you see? Angels could change the world, and Lucille was proof. Jam was fascinated by them, by the stories the teachers told in history class. They briefly mentioned other angels, those who weren't human, but only to say that Lucille's angels had been named after these other ones. When Jam asked for more information, her teacher's eyes slid away. They mentioned religious books, but with reluctance, not wanting to influence the children. Religion caused so many problems before the revolution, people were hesitant to talk about it now. If you really want to know, one of the teachers added, taking pity on Jam's frustrated curiosity, there's always the library. So, if you like what you've heard so far, check this book out. It's a really fascinating story about this world like ours, but different. And it's a book that's been challenged in large part because it challenges the world as we know it. It says we could change things, and maybe someday we will. But some people don't want to change things, usually because they benefit from the status quo. And that's kind of what happens in this book. Ultimately, the person who is the monster here doesn't want to admit what they've done, and it does require supernatural intervention to get this person to confess to what they've done. So, check this out. And thank you for watching. I'll see you again soon.